I have just about 12 years of experience in the IT world. So the initial 6 were into software testing. Later on, I started working as an Ariba consultant. So I worked on various Ariba solutions, done to end-to-end implementations of Ariba, worked on various support projects as well. So that's about my experience in Ariba. So just a brief about this course, okay? We'll cover various solutions of SAP Ariba. We'll start with SAP Ariba buying and invoicing. Then we'll move on to SAP Ariba sourcing. Then we'll cover SAP Ariba contracts and SAP Ariba SLP. So these are the solutions that we cover as part of this course. We will touch upon the integration aspect as well, but the instance that we are using is not a integrated instance. We will see in the future if we get access to integrated instance, we'll try to cover all the integration aspects. If we do not get a chance to get the integration access, then I will share one document with you, but I will also explain how Ariba is integrated with the ERP system. Okay, so I understand that most of you all have experience in SAP so this would be very easy for you because you are already aware of the procurement, right? You are already working on that. This session today will understand what is procurement, direct versus indirect procurement, what are the different solutions of SAP Ariba, the source to pay cycle. We'll deep dive into source to pay, discuss each of the phases of source to pay cycle, and how Ariba can help us in the world of source to pay or in the world of procurement. So let's get started. So what is procurement? Can anyone give it a try? So can anyone give a brief about what is procurement? Just as to what you understood from all your experience in the world.
Procurement is nothing but goods and services which we require for the business, and we need to fulfill our requirement and need of the company, whatever it is. We are procuring one materials or whatever it is, raw materials or direct materials or indirect materials for the office or to complete the finished goods or semi-finished goods or whatever it is. That's what my understanding.
Procurement is a function of the business which is responsible for securing the goods and services that are needed by any organization. For example, if we consider a car manufacturing industry, right? So what all is needed to manufacture the car? We need the steel, we need the tires, we need the paint, we need nuts and bolts, we need laptops, we need office chairs, we need fans. So all these goods, and we'll need some services as well, right, to maintain the machines that are used in the plant to manufacture the car. So all these we need to procure from different vendors, right? So the aspect of procuring or purchasing raw materials or goods and services that are needed by any organization is called procurement. Okay. Now procurement is of two types. One is direct procurement, the other one is indirect procurement. Sticking with the example of the car, let's try to understand what is direct procurement. Okay. So I just read this statement. It says procuring anything that directly supports the production of the goods a company sells, including raw materials, components, parts, services, and wholesale items. All these have an impact upon the revenue, growth, and reputation. So the supplier relationships are crucial in direct procurement. So let's stick with the example of the car manufacturing company. So if you to manufacture the car, what all is needed? We need steel, right? Steel. We need tires, nuts and bolts. We need the paint. Then we need steering wheel, windshields, right? Brake pads, battery, headlights. So we need, along with this, we need many other materials to manufacture the car, right? So for a car manufacturing company, how is the revenue being generated? By selling the car, correct? So the revenue for the car manufacturing industry, car manufacturing company is generated by selling the car. Now, what all is needed to manufacture the car? We need all these materials, right? So procuring anything that is directly involved in manufacturing the finished good, which in turn results in the revenue of the company, is called direct procurement. Okay. So for example, in this case, in the car manufacturing company example, so procuring the materials which directly go into manufacturing the car itself is called direct procurement, right? So the company generates revenue by selling its finished good to the end customers. So in this case, car is the finished good which is going to be sold to the end customer. That's how the company generates the revenue. Any procurement activity that goes into manufacturing the finished good or is helpful in preparing the finished good is called or is categorized as direct procurement. Okay. Then we have something called as indirect procurement. Now, sticking with the car manufacturing company example, so we need all these materials to manufacture the car, right? So there is a department who works in the plant who are responsible to manufacture the car. But the car manufacturing industry not just employs people who are working to manufacture the car, right? Who are directly involved in manufacturing the car. There will be different departments, right? Like sales team, right? Marketing team. Then we'll have the legal team. Then we'll have the IT team, HR team, right? We'll have all these other departments in the given organization. Now, all these other organizations need some materials to do their day-to-day activities, correct? For example, IT team will need the laptops, or in fact, all these teams will need laptops to perform their day-to-day activities. Agree? They will also need internet connection, right? They will also need the office chairs. They will need pencils, pens, notebooks. Not no, we need all these items to perform the day-to-day activities in a car manufacturing company. But these teams are not directly involved in manufacturing the car. Agree? They are supporting the car manufacturing company, but they are not directly involved in manufacturing the car itself, right? But they are definitely needed in the organization. So any materials that are or procurement of any materials or services which is not directly involved in the finished article is categorized as indirect procurement. So the classic example of indirect procurement would be office supplies, right? Laptops. All these are actually needed to perform the day-to-day activities in a given organization. But in our example, they are not directly involved in manufacturing the car itself. They are not generating any revenue for the company, but they are sort of expenses for the company, right? So any procurement activity which is not directly involved in manufacturing or in the preparation of the finished article is called or is categorized as indirect procurement. Any questions?
Arjun, indirect procurement means after the finishing they will be involving.
No, not necessarily, right?
Right.
Not after the finishing. So they will work in tandem.
Uh-huh.
These teams work in tandem with the manufacturing team, right? So they do their work every day. These guys also do their work every day. It's not that they come into picture only after the car is finished or only after the finished good is ready, right? We definitely need the sales team before to understand what will be the sales strategy of the company. How can they increase the sales of the cars? So they need to work every day, right? So even the IT team, for example, let's say the car manufacturing company is using, let's say, Windows application, okay, Windows OS. So they will need their team to support the Windows OS, right? If any issue occurs on Windows, they need someone to look into that issue, right? And they are not going to wait until the car is finished, right? So they don't have any say in the manufacturing the car. But however, those applications which the IT team is using, they are helping indirectly in actually selling the car, right? Also tracking other aspects of the company, right? So in any given organization, it's not just selling the car, right? So there are other aspects of the company that also are very important for any given organization, right? Now, for example, the HR team. So they are responsible to recruit the people for the policies, how the organization should work, everything, right? So they are not going to wait until the car is ready to perform the recruitment, right? They will need someone from in the IT department. So they will go ahead and do the hiring, right? And they need different items to work or to perform their day-to-day activities, right? But they are not directly involved in manufacturing the car itself, right? Understood, team?
Yes, yes, got it.
Okay. So just to summarize, direct procurement is that aspect of procurement which is involved directly in the manufacturing or preparation of the finished article which the company sells to its end customers to generate the revenue. Whereas indirect procurement is needed to perform the day-to-day activities of a given organization. However, they are not directly involved in manufacturing or preparation of the finished good. Now we understood what is procurement, the difference between direct versus indirect procurement. So let's understand where in the world of procurement Ariba is used. So SAP Ariba is mainly used for indirect procurement. SAP Ariba solutions mainly support indirect procurement. It's where we are going to use SAP Ariba solutions in the world of indirect procurement, not for direct procurement. Okay, direct procurement happens in the ERP system. There are a lot of aspects that go into direct procurement which Ariba does not support. So that's why SAP Ariba is used for indirect procurement. Okay, so there are a couple of solutions which actually facilitate the direct procurement, but are, I would not say 100% related to direct procurement. Okay, so just a brief about Ariba's history. Okay, SAP Ariba was founded in the year 1996. Okay, first it was just Ariba. Okay, founded in the year 1996 in US. Then it was acquired by SAP in 2012. Okay, so why we need a Ariba to do the procurement or indirect procurement activity? Let's understand that why we need Ariba first of all, right? So procurement or indirect procurement is a back in those days, before Ariba was founded, before 1996, there were other small applications which supported indirect procurement. Otherwise, most of the companies did or perform their procurement activity offline, meaning it was paper intensive work. Okay, let's consider an example. Okay, that our IT team needs 100 laptops. Okay, or let's say you want to buy a laptop. Okay, buy a laptop for our personal use. So what do we do when, let's say there is no Amazon, Flipkart, okay, before Amazon, Flipkart, or any other e-commerce site? How did we purchase a laptop? We approached multiple vendors, correct? We go to HP, we go to Dell, we go to Acer, Lenovo, right? Then we get the quotations from them, right? Then we compare the quotes, and finally buy from one vendor, right? HP. So this is what we used to do. How we used to go, we had to physically go to HP, Dell, Acer, and Lenovo, because back in those days, let's say there is no Flipkart, Amazon, or any other e-commerce site. So I had to physically visit these vendors and give them, my configuration or my requirements for the laptops. Based on that, they will provide the codes. Then I compare the codes from these vendors. Finally, I arrive at a decision that I am going to buy from HP. Correct? So this is what we used to do, right? Back in those days when there was no Amazon or Flipkart, right? We used to physically visit the vendors so that I can buy the laptop at the best price. Correct? So this is all. Now even organizations, so this is for a personal use, right? Just for a personal use, I went to different vendors so that I can save some money, right? Now imagine a company, how much money it is going to spend on their goods and services. So it's a huge sum of money, right? So even they want to save some money, while spending on these goods or services which are required for their daily activities. This is how they used to get the codes from different organizations, different vendors for any material that they require. Then they compare each of them. It will all be on a paper, and it was not transparent at all. Okay, so no one in the organization is aware how the spend is being done. So there is no tracking. They don't understand if they want to go back and check. So where in the year 1995 I have spent my money. So there is no transparency and there is no tracking. So that's where Ariba found an opportunity and they developed this digital procurement application for indirect purposes or to support indirect procurement, so that they can bring transparency, they can bring the tracking, and they can you know help the organization sit in their place and do this procurement operations and also avoid lot of paperwork. That is the use of Ariba. So with the Ariba digital procurement application, companies can track their spend. They can understand in which department or which region or which company of theirs is spending the amount, where the spend is going, what is the item that has been procured, who has bought that item, why that has been bought, and they can control the spend. Okay, so that's the importance of Ariba in the world of procurement. That's why we need any digital procurement application. So SAP Ariba is one such digital procurement application. Now there are other players as well, like Coupa, Yagar. So these are the other major players in the world of procurement. Okay, Coupa is slowly on the rise. It is giving stiff competition to SAP Ariba. But even now, I would say SAP Ariba is sort of the leader when it comes to big organizations. Okay. MNCs mostly use SAP Ariba. Okay. Coupa is used by medium to small small cap companies. Okay. Large cap still use SAP Ariba. Let's move on, understand what are the different solutions that we are going to cover in this course. Okay. So we have SAP Ariba sourcing, SAP Ariba contract, Ariba SLP, buying and invoicing, buying. So these two are the same solutions, except that in this we also do the invoicing part. In this we don't do the invoicing. Now let's understand the source to pay cycle. So what is source to pay? What are the different activities that are performed in each of the phases of the source to pay cycle? So source to pay, as you can see, we have these different activities or phases in the source to pay cycle. First is sourcing, second is contract management, third is ordering, last one is the payment. So let's deep dive into each of these phases and understand what are the different activities performed in each of these phases. Okay, so let's consider or stick with our example of procuring 100 laptops. So let's talk about sourcing. Sourcing in general means identifying the source of the goods or services that are needed by the organization. So for example, we need 100 laptops. We need 100 laptops for the car manufacturing company. Let's say our car manufacturing company is Maruti. 100 laptops for the car manufacturing company. I need to identify the source, right? Identify the source, nothing but the supplier or vendor. Supplier, vendor are both one and the same, right? So I need to identify the source for those 100 laptops, or who, from which supplier or vendor I am going to procure the 100 laptops. Okay, so let's understand how a company does the sourcing activity to identify the best supplier or best vendor for those 100 laptops. So we need 100 laptops. So what initially the company or the sourcing team of the car manufacturing company does is they float one RFI, request for information, to different vendors supplying laptops. Okay, let's say there are HP, Dell, Lenovo, Acer, even Microsoft. So these are the major players when it comes to laptops, right? So what initially the sourcing team will do is they will ask, okay, they will float or they will send an invitation to participate in request for information to these different vendors. Okay, so what they are going to do in this RFI phase is they will ask certain questions to these vendors. Okay, for example, when you are applying for a job, right, you are not the only person who is applying for that job. There will be other candidates as well who are applying for that job. So initially, how does the HR team scrutinize your application? Based on your resume, right? Also, they will sometimes ask certain questions, correct? When you are applying for the job, right? Think of sourcing as, let's draw sourcing a parallel to applying for a job, fulfilling one requirement in IT department. Okay. So let's say for our requirement, we have 100 laptops that are needed by the company, right? So I will not go and buy these 100 laptops from a vendor just like that, right? I want to understand different information or different aspects about that vendor before I can purchase anything. And I want to buy the laptops at the best possible price, right? Because it's not my money. And even if it is my money or for personal use, I want to buy a laptop at the best possible price, right? So that's why I compare different sites, Amazon, Flipkart, other sites, and I finally choose one site to purchase a laptop. So similarly, when a company is purchasing any goods or services from different vendors, right? So they want to buy it at a best price and at best quality as well, right? So initially they send this request for information to these vendors. Okay. So the vendors then respond to the questions. Okay. Now, similar to you guys applying for any job or we applying for any job. So based on the response to those questions, some of the candidates are shortlisted, right? Similarly, even the sourcing team, based on the response to this RFI questionnaire, they shortlist certain vendors for further rounds or further negotiation. Okay, let's consider that HP, Dell, and Lenovo have been shortlisted based on the questions these vendors have answered for RFI. Okay, got it, team? So similar, I mean, based on your resume, sometimes you get shortlisted, right, for the next round, the technical round. Then you have the managerial round, right? So similarly, let's consider RFI as the shortlisting based on the resume of your resume. Okay, whatever information is there on your resume, based on that, HR team scrutinizes your profile and shortlist whether you suit for that position or not, right? So similarly, based on the answers to this RFI, the sourcing team shortlist certain vendors for the next round. So what is the next round? Then they invite these shortlisted vendors for RFP. Here is nothing but request for price, or it's also called RFQ, request for quotation. So here we are just asking some information regarding laptops to these companies or about these suppliers. Then here in the next round, once we have shortlisted HP, Dell, Lenovo from these 5 companies, I am asking about the price. Request for price or request for quotation means I am asking about the price at which they can offer me these 100 laptops, right? So what do HP, Dell, and Lenovo? They respond to the RFP with their codes, right? Now, based on the response from the vendors, sourcing team, sourcing team shortlist or can also finalize vendors for the laptop. Okay. So let's say HP is quoting, HP is quoting laptop at $150. Dell is quoting laptops at $166 and Lenovo has sent their reports for $130. Okay. So these are the, let's say these are the responses from the suppliers for the RFP, okay, or request for price or request for quotation. Now, based on this, the sourcing team can either finalize that, okay, I will go ahead and buy from these two vendors or just this vendor or these two vendors. There will be different combinations and permutations, right? There is another option as well. Okay, let's say I'm okay with all these prices, but I want to still get the best price out of these three suppliers. So what I can do is I can invite these suppliers for an auction. Okay. We all know what is an auction, right? You went to an auction where they are selling a second hand car or a used car, right? So how does the auction happen? So initially one person says that I will pay $500 for that second hand car or that used car. Some other person says that I will buy it for $600. Some other person will say, okay, I'm ready to spend $1,000 on that car, right? So this is how the auction happens, right? The seller wants to sell it at the highest possible price, whereas the buyer wants to buy it at the lowest possible price, right? So that's how auction happens, right? So similarly, based on the responses, if I'm not satisfied, I can invite these vendors for an auction so that they can compete among themselves and provide me or the car manufacturing company the best price for the laptop. Okay. So based on the response or bids, we call them as bids received from the suppliers in the auction, sourcing team finalizes the vendor or vendors. Okay. So they evaluate the bids received in the auction for the laptops, and the sourcing team can either choose to buy from single vendor or they can choose to buy from different vendors. Mostly it will be two vendors. I will tell you why. You are purchasing 100 laptops, right? Now, if you stick with one vendor, if this vendor has any issue, then they will not be able to supply the laptops to us, right? So that means my work will get delayed. If I don't have the laptops, then the team cannot perform the work. So that means my work is getting delayed. Now, let's say if I have two vendors supplying these 100 laptops, then even if this vendor has an issue, I can rely on the other vendor to purchase the laptop, right? So in that way, I am mitigating the risk of, stopping the supply of laptops, right? Agree? So it is always a risk if I rely on a single vendor, right? So if this vendor has an issue, I will not have my laptops in time and my work will be delayed. If I rely on two or multiple vendors, then I am mitigating that risk. As we can see, so our requirement for 100 laptops was initially started with an RFI. We invited these different vendors to RFI. We then checked their responses to the questions, whatever we asked on RFI. Then we shortlisted three vendors for the next phase, which is RFQ, request for price, request for quotation. Then based on the codes, the sourcing team decided to go for an auction because they were not happy with the quotation received in the RFP or RFQ. Then, based on the bids submitted in auction, they finalized that they are going to buy, let's say, from HP and Lenovo. Okay, they decided that, and HP finally they said that they can offer the laptop at 140, Lenovo said, I can offer you the laptop at 125. So the sourcing team was happy with these quotes. They decided that they are going to buy the laptops from HP and Lenovo. So what did we say sourcing is? Identify the source, right? The source for the, write it here. Identify the source for or of the goods or services, right? That is what we do in sourcing. So did we identify the source for my or for the car manufacturing company's laptops at the end of the sourcing? We have identified, right? We have identified that HP and Lenovo are going to be the vendors for the 100 laptops. Agree? So that means we have fulfilled our obligation of sourcing, that is to identify the source of the goods or services. So to perform all these activities, Ariba provides a solution called SAP Ariba sourcing. So using SAP Ariba sourcing, I can perform all these activities sitting at my desk. I need not physically visit any of the vendors and ask them for quotations. I can invite as many suppliers as possible and you know get the responses from them, evaluate their responses. Based on their responses, I can shortlist some of the vendors for the next negotiation. I can create an RFQ, I can create an option. Finally, I can finalize that these two vendors are going to supply the laptops for me. So all these activities I can do or perform using SAP Ariba sourcing application. So that is the use of SAP Ariba sourcing application. So in the world of or in the cycle source to pay, I can use SAP Ariba sourcing to perform the activities of the sourcing phase of source to pay. So I can use sourcing application of Ariba to perform all these activities. Now we are done with the sourcing phase of S2P cycle. So what is the next phase? We are entering the contract management. So let's understand what is contract management. So in sourcing, I am identifying the source of the goods and supplies. Sorry, goods and services. So I have identified HP and Lenovo as the vendors who are going to supply me 100 laptops. Now in contract management, we will establish the terms and condition of the purchase with the vendors. Okay. Simply put, now I have identified HP and Lenovo for the 100 laptops using sourcing. Now I will not directly go and buy the laptops from the HP or Lenovo vendor. I want to make sure that whatever terms and conditions that were agreed for the procurement of 100 laptops, I enter them in a legal document so that both parties, the buyer, which is the car manufacturing company, and the seller, which is HP and Lenovo, are legally bind to certain terms and conditions, right? So that if there is any dispute in the future, no, I can use that contract as an evidence and fight against the vendor. Agree? So, for example, if you are, let's say, you are buying a flat, okay, or a open plot, what do? You don't just pay the vendor or the land seller the money and you get the land or the flat, correct? There should be one agreement between you and the vendor. Agree? Without that agreement, we cannot say that you have purchased the flat or the vendor has sold the flat to you. There should be some legal document which is actually registering your sale. Agree? Without that, there is no importance how much ever money you pay to that person. Correct? He can say that no, you did not pay me any money. There is no document as a proof which says that you have paid the money and he has given the flat to you. Correct? So similarly, and we establish certain terms and conditions of your purchase of the flat, right? In that document, which is called as sale agreement. Correct? So similarly, when we are going to purchase anything from the vendors for an organization, we enter into a contract and we establish the terms and conditions with the vendor so that both parties, buyer and supplier, are legally bound to that terms and conditions mentioned on the agreement. Now, I can use Ariba contract management to create these contracts, send it to the vendor. Vendor will go through the terms and conditions that are there on the contract. They can make any changes or suggest any changes or just agree to the terms and conditions and sign that contract and send it back to the buyer. So all these operations I can do using the Ariba contract management module. Clear, team?
Yes.
Okay. So what are we doing in contract management? We will establish the terms and conditions of the purchase with the vendors. So what we will do is first we'll create the contract. Okay. Send the contract to the vendor. Vendor reviews the contract. Vendor suggests changes or accepts the contract. Vendor digitally signs the contract. Contract is published. Okay. Now, terms and conditions of the purchase of 100 laptops has been established using contract. So whenever there is any sort of dispute, I can refer this contract and see what are the terms and conditions that have been established with these vendors, and I can penalize them, right? That is what I can do using this contract that I have established with the vendor. Okay, even buyer signs the contract digitally. Buyer also digitally signs the contract. So what are we doing in contract management? We have identified the source for the 100 laptops, which is HP and Lenovo. Now we are getting into a contract with these two vendors to purchase the laptop. In that contract, I am establishing certain terms and conditions of the purchase. That contract, we send it to the vendor. They review the contract. They can suggest any changes or they can accept the contract. Vendor will digitally sign the contract. Buyer will digitally sign the contract. Contract is finally published. Okay. So for example, just to let you know what are the details that we capture on that contract, it can be the price of the laptop, when they are going to ship the goods, what is the expiration date of the contract, when is the contract going to start, for which region the contract is applicable. Okay, so we can mention all these details on the contract. Now I can use SAP Ariba contracts solution to perform all these activities of contract management. Okay, so that is the use of SAP Ariba contracts solution. In SAP Ariba sourcing, I'm identifying the source by performing different activities of sourcing like RFI, RFQ option. Then in contracts, once I've finalized the vendors, I'm entering into a contract using SAP Ariba contracts. I'm establishing the terms and conditions. I'm sending that contract to the vendor. Vendor can go to the contract, review the contract, suggest any changes, and finally, we will publish the contract. So that is what we are doing in the contract management phase of source to pay, and SAP Ariba contracts solution can be used to perform all the activities of contract management. That is the use of SAP Ariba contracts management. Now, what is the next phase of a source to pay cycle? It is the ordering part. Let's understand what is ordering. So in sourcing, we have identified that HP and Lenovo are going to be the suppliers. I have established a contract with them. Okay. Now, what are we going to do in ordering? So in ordering, what I do is, now you needed 100 laptops, right? So in general, you will not require these 100 laptops on a single day, meaning that you don't want these laptops to be delivered on one particular day. In fact, you will want these laptops to be delivered at regular intervals, like monthly 10 laptops. Let's say you are expecting 10 new joinees for your IT department. Okay, 10 new joinees in the IT department every month. You are expecting 10 new joinees in the IT department every month. Okay. Now you know who are the suppliers for these laptops, right? So you need 10. That means you need 10 new laptops every month. Correct? Agree? So we are expecting 10 new joinees every month in the IT department. Let's say for an year or 2 years. Okay. During this period, I am expecting 10 new joinees every month in the IT department. So that means those new joinees will require laptop to perform their day-to-day activities. So that means I need 10 new laptops every month. Now I know who is the vendor for these laptops. Okay. So what the procurement team, so there will be a procurement team who is actually responsible to buy the laptops from the vendors. Okay. Sourcing team, so there will be a sourcing team who is responsible to identify the source of the goods and services. Okay, I will write it here so that you understand. Sourcing team is responsible to identify the goods and source of the goods and services. Now, sourcing team have completed their job, which is to identify the source. Right? HP and Lenovo, they have identified two sources. Contract team or contract management team helps in establishing the contracts, the vendors. Right? So We have established the contract. Contract management team has performed their duty. Done. Now we have to procure the laptops. We haven't yet procured the laptops here, right? We have identified the source. We still do not have the laptops in our world, or we haven't, the supplier hasn't delivered the laptops to the buyer yet. We have only identified the source. We have entered into a contract. Now there will be the procurement team or the purchasing team is responsible for procuring the laptops, or I would say placing the orders for the laptops. So how does it work? Let's understand that. Okay. So this team, uh, so the, let's say the HR team gives intimation to the procurement team that they will need 10 laptops every month. Okay. So this procurement team will create, initially create what is called as purchase requisition. Okay. Procurement team procurement team creates what is called as a purchase requisition. Now, what is a purchase requisition? Purchase requisition contains information like what item dash commodity is being purchased. Okay. The quantity of the commodity, the price of the commodity, the need by date, meaning by when we need the commodity, the ship to location, to which address the items needs to be shipped, the vendor of the commodity. So, so we have established the contract. We haven't yet received the laptops. So the HR team intimates the procurement team that we will need 10 laptops every month. Okay. So then the procurement team creates something called as purchase requisition. Now, what is purchase requisition, or what information is contained in the purchase requisition is what item we are procuring or purchasing, how much quantity of that item is needed, what is the price of that item, which location the item should be delivered, who is the vendor of that commodity. Okay, and when the item should be delivered. Of course, there will be other details as well, but these are the main aspects of the purchase requisition. Okay, so procurement team creates one, creates the purchase requisition. Okay, procurement team submits the purchase requisition. Now, when the PR or the purchase requisition is submitted, PR nothing but purchase requisition, goes through an approval. So why do we need an approval? So consider you are buying a laptop for yourself, but you do not have any sorts of revenue. meaning you don't have the finances to purchase the laptop for yourself. So you are relying, let's say, on your mother or father to buy the laptop. So what do? You go to your mother or father and say, hey, dad, I need this laptop, so that I can work on my projects, right? You will seek their approval, correct? Because they are the ones who are going to fund or give the finances for that laptop. So similarly, the procurement team is using the organization's funds, right? They are not going to pay from their own pocket for the 10 laptops, right? So it is the organization's funds which are going to be used to procure or to buy these 10 laptops, right? So what will happen is they create this purchase requisition. That purchase requisition goes through an approval. So there will be certain people in the organization who are designated to review the purchase requisitions and approve them, meaning allocate funds to them. So they give a word, okay, you can go and purchase this 10 laptops. I am aware of this requirement. That is what they are actually doing on the approval. Okay, got it, team? Clear? Okay. So PR goes to an approvers, approve the PR. Okay. Once the approvers approve the PR, what happens is a purchase order is generated. Okay, and sent to the supplier and sent to the supplier. Now here purchase requisition is an internal document. Okay, it is not sent to the supplier. It resides within the car manufacturing company only. Okay, it is not sent to any system. Okay, or any other party. It is an internal document that resides within the car manufacturing company. Now it is the purchase order that is sent to the supplier. Okay, purchase order is sent to the supplier after the PR is approved. The information, whatever we have entered, like the commodity, the quantity, the price, the supplier, all that information from the purchase requisition is copied onto this purchase order automatically. So there should be some information to the supplier, right? What item is needed by the buyer, how much quantity is needed. All that information is needed for the supplier to send that goods to us, right? Without that information, how will the supplier know what item they should supply, correct? So whatever information we entered on this purchase requisition, once it is approved, a PO or a purchase order is generated, and that information from purchase requisition is copied onto the purchase order and then sent to the supplier. Okay, supplier then ships the laptops to the buyer. Buyer will receive the 10 laptops. Okay, supplier then sends the invoice for the 10 laptops. Buyer will verify the invoice and pay the supplier for those 10 laptops, right? So I have created a purchase requisition, right? Based on the intimation I received from the HR team that we need 10 laptops for the IT department. I created a purchase requisition. That purchase requisition, once it is submitted, goes through an approval because it is the organization's funds that the procurement team is using to purchase those 10 laptops. there should be some approval. There should be some people who are actually reviewing that purchase and approving that. No, otherwise, if there is no approval, this procurement team can do whatever they want, right? They can purchase 10 laptops and use it for their personal use because there is no one approving the details or the purchases, right? No one is aware what this procurement team is doing. They can do whatever they want with the funds of the organization, right? They are going to misuse the funds of the organization. So to avoid that, no, there will be an approval flow or there will be an approval that the PR goes through. Once all the approvers approve the PR, a PO is generated. All the information from the PR is transmitted onto the PO automatically and sent to the supplier. Supplier will check the information which is there on the PO document and then send or ship the laptops, 10 laptops or the quantity, how much our quantity is required to the buyer. Buyer will receive those 10 laptops. Supplier then sends an invoice for those 10 laptops. Buyer will verify the invoice that is sent by the supplier and finally pay for those 10 laptops. Any questions?
So Arjun, all we are doing like in indirect procurement, all this process in another.
Yes. In ordering, what did we do in ordering? We created a purchase requisition. That purchase requisition went through an approval. Once approved, a PO was generated, sent to the supplier. Supplier sent the goods. Buyer received the goods. Supplier invoiced and buyer verified and paid the supplier. So we can perform, so I will call this as ordering and payment because we have performed the payment as well. So now we have completed ordering as well as payment. So that means all the phases of source to pay have been fulfilled, right? So to do all these activities, that is to create the requisition, receive the goods, send the PO to the supplier, receive the goods, verify the invoice, pay the supplier, I will use Ariba's buying and invoicing solution. Okay, that is the user Ariba buying and invoicing solution. I can perform all the activities of ordering and payment using buying and invoicing solution of SAP Ariba. Clear team? So that's why we need SAP Ariba buying and invoicing. Now, procure to order, as I mentioned, is the same, except that we will not have the invoicing part here. The supplier cannot send the invoice if we use SAP Ariba buying solution. We can only perform till this activity, that is receive the goods if we use buying application, SAP Ariba buying, which is procure to order, meaning the PO will be sent, supplier will send the goods. Invoicing will happen in a different system. In most cases, it will be the ERP system. Okay, ECC or S4 HANA or any other ERP system. So that's how using these offered by SAP Ariba, I can perform the various activities of the source to pay cycle. So we did not talk about SLP, right? What is the use of Ariba SLP? So we understood how various solutions of SAP Ariba like sourcing, contracts, buying and invoicing or buying can be used to perform the various activities involved in the S2P cycle. Do you have any questions on the usage of SAP Ariba, how they can be used to perform these various activities in the S2P cycle? Take that as a no. So a brief about SAP Ariba SLP. SAP Ariba SLP, nothing but supplier lifecycle performance management. So what are we going to do with this SAP Ariba SLP and why do we need this SAP Ariba SLP? Now, so we'll have, so laptops is one such commodity that we are going to procure using Ariba. Now, just the laptop has two vendors. In our example, it is two vendors. In real time, it could be more than two vendors, right? So, like laptops, there will be other goods and services that we are going to procure from various vendors, right? So, what SLP does is it will give me an option to manage all the vendors in a single place. Okay. For example, I can track a particular vendor and see if they are delivering the goods as per the agreed date or not. I can check if they have, you know, if they have increased the price or stick to the price that is maintained on the contract or not. I can check if they are violating any other terms and conditions that I had or that as both parties entered into a contract. I can perform all these activities to using the SAP Ariba SLP module. Okay, so I can manage monitor the performance of the vendors. I can perform all these activities using SAP Ariba SLP. As the name suggests, supplier lifecycle. Okay, so I can create new vendors. I can update any information about the existing vendors. I can delete vendors which I don't want. I can also monitor the performance of the vendors using SAP Ariba SLP. So that is what I can do with SAP Ariba SLP. Because a given organization will have thousands of vendors. To manage all those vendors, to maintain their information, to update their information, to monitor their performance, I will need a solution. SAP Ariba SLP is that solution using which I can manage those thousands of vendors sitting at my desk. Okay, clear team? So this is how I can use the various solutions offered by SAP Ariba to perform the various activities of the source to pay cycle. So in the sessions coming, we will understand or we will look at the Ariba application, see how we can create RFIs, RFPs, create auctions, monitor the responses from the vendors, finalize the vendors, how I can establish a contract, how the vendor can review the contract and suggest any changes, how I can create the requisitions, how I can set up the approval flow, how the use approvers can approve the requisition, how the PO is generated, how it is transmitted to the supplier, how can we receive the goods, how the invoice is done. And the payment part is actually done in the ERP system. Okay. So we send the invoice from Ariba to the ERP system. In the ERP system, the invoice is validated and paid to the supplier. Okay. So during the course, we will also understand how the Ariba application is integrated with the ERP system like SAP, ECC. Okay. I'll give you the steps and I'll tell you what are the interfaces that are required to be enabled. All that stuff during this course. So it will be a real time experience for you. Okay. So we will actually perform what all activities we do or we are supposed to do as Ariba consultants when we get onto a Ariba consulting job. Okay. So it will be completely real time experience for you and you will do hands on of all these configurations that are required in Ariba. Okay. It's like you are implementing Ariba solution for a new client. That is what we will go through in this course. Okay, team?
You are going to provide the access for the practice
Yes, we will provide you the access for the practice.
for How many months?
So the access lasts for a month, okay, 1 month. If you want to extend, then we need to pay.
And this course will be for 1 month.
You can say for 45 days. We'll try
It's
to
going to be
finish.
every day, or how it is going to be conducted?
It is going to be every day from Monday to Saturday.
Yeah, catalog management is not part of this.
We will see catalog management as part of ordering. Okay,
Okay.
we will look at the catalogs as well. How catalogs are loaded into Ariba, all that stuff.
CIG?
Yes, we will touch upon CIG as well. CIG is used for integration. So the instance which we are using is a non-integrated instance, meaning it is standalone. It is not integrated with any ERP. But however, I will explain how integration works. What are the steps that we need to perform as consultants to do the integration? Okay, I will share the document with you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
I have the course contents with me, the index with me. I will share that with the management. Then you can go through that. Okay.
Yeah.
The management might have shared it with you already, but I am working on a renewed one. It will be ready by tomorrow, and I will share with the manager. Then you can go through that. Okay. Any other questions? So will you be shifting completely to Ariba? Is that your goal for this course, like getting a new job on SAP Ariba, or will you be supporting SAP Ariba in your organization? What is your goal when you are learning this course? Thank you. Have a good day.